birthday of her birthday, Gaia Brown, who is sitting over there. Let's give her a hand. And now we'll hear quickly from Nathan, followed by Colleen.
Good morning. My name is Nathan Bakken. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the Director of Congregational Life here at UUFNN. And I have just some quick announcements. The first is on the back of your order of service, you will see 2 QR codes. The one with the little dinosaur on it that says "Scan Me" connects to all the lyrics for our hymns. So if you can't see the screen, you can pull up the lyrics on your phone or personal device. The second QR code is going to connect you to a survey that went out in last week's e-news and will continue to go out for the next 2 weeks, focused on UUFNN programming. As we get ready for our programmatic year of 25-26, it's about a 3 to 5 minute long survey. Some of you have already taken it. It will just help me and the leadership of UUFNN start to plan and organize around the programs you want to participate in. So please take some time later this afternoon or later this week. The survey will again be in the e-news, so if you have not signed up for the e-news, there are also some hard copy versions on the table in the gathering room. So if you're someone who says, Nathan, I don't want to go on my computer to fill out a survey, I do have some paper copies. You can fill it out after service and you can give it to me, or you can drop it off to the office during the week. My next announcement is if you have not signed our petition for our youth-led playground initiative, you have a week and a half. There is a digital version of this petition that went out last week in the e-news, but if you, once again, would rather take pen to paper and sign in real life, there's a petition out in the gathering room to express your support for our youngest members to have a space on this property where they can build community, have fun, and enjoy the outdoors. And finally, these are connected. Today at 1:30 in Maynard, which is a room in our admin building right over there, is our LGBTQ support group. So if you are a LGBTQ person seeking connection, community support, as we are navigating a trying time politically, this is a space where we can come together and listen and be attentive to each other's needs. And also in the gathering room is a sign-up sheet for Northern Nevada Pride, which will be on September 6th this year. And so UUFNN walks in the parade, and we also have a booth at the festival. The festival this year is going to be in Midtown, which is a lot closer than the river, for at least me. But if you are interested in supporting in any way, there's a sign-up sheet in the gathering room, and I will be contacting folks who sign up about how they want to volunteer. So if you want to walk in the parade, if you want to sit at our booth, if you want to help set up, regardless of how you want to volunteer, please sign your name, and I will be in contact with more information. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Colleen Crowley about the book club.
Hi, I'm standing in for Janine Franklin Clark, who currently leads our UUFNN book club. She's ill today. I just want to note that this is different from the anti-racism book club. They meet every second Friday of the month, 10:30 a.m. in the Star King room, and by Zoom if you request prior to it. They read a variety of books, one selected by most members each month, and if you don't read the current book, we encourage you to come anyway. There's no shoulds, don't read what you don't want to read. They discuss the current book, the books they're reading, have read, have heard of, or want to read, and then they just kind of talk about current events, TV, movies, and how we're doing. So it's a book social club. After that, they morph into a food social group and go to lunch together and would more than welcome you to join them. You can talk to me, and I'll give you Janine's contact information today, or if you like, you can call Janine direct at 775-525-4848. Thank you.
Next, we'd like to hear from Kevin Murphy.
Good morning, I'm Kevin Murphy, he, him, his, and in practical terms, hers, which is a reference to Rachel. Out of deep concern that you might suffer from survey fatigue, the other survey on the Sunday Forum will only last another week. But please, please, if you have not filled it out, take advantage of this week's e-news newsletter and fill out the Sunday Forum survey. We want you to seize the Sunday Forum and remake it in your imagination. Thank you.
I'd just like to announce that it is the 34th anniversary on Americans with Disabilities Act. And that means for those who have disabilities, the Act, of course, created captioning, ramps, curb cuts, and many things that, of course, make living accessible to those who have disabilities. Again, the same rights and opportunities to all. And the last is Lily Egan, who has an announcement.
Good morning, everyone. In this case, last is definitely best. So as your co-president, I want to let you all know that we have wonderful news. We have hired a minister. And she will be starting Friday. So we couldn't be more thrilled and excited to welcome Reverend Kristen Famula back to our community. So as you can tell, many of you know her. She worked here before. She was a reverend, first as connections coordinator and later as director of religious education. Then she left us in 2022 to become a minister, and now she's back. So you'll all get to meet Kristen and her lovely family next Sunday, so make sure you come, and stay tuned for more details in an email coming out this week with more information. You'll learn all about her background and all the accomplishments that make her an ideal candidate for us right now. So, I also want to do something which is somewhat overdue, but we have to pay incredible tribute to the search committee. And I think most of them are here today, so I would like you to all come up, please, right now. In fact, they're all here. Okay. These folks worked tirelessly, and I mean tirelessly, to make this happen. The time, energy, diligence, skill, and patience required of this team cannot be overstated. So let's give them a huge thank you. We wouldn't have Kristen, we wouldn't be here, I don't believe, without them and all their hard work.
I almost want to say the service is over, but we must go on. We must go on. Okay. Next, of course, is our chalice lighting.
You might have noticed in the last few worship Sundays, we've started lighting our chalice before we greet our neighbors. Richard Dalton reminded the worship associates that lighting the chalice is a symbol of the start of our communal worship, and that greeting each other really belongs within the light of that flame. So I've asked, there, we have our chalice lit. This house is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor. We gather, part of the great circle of life, around the hearth of faith, the altar of our common life, the fire of hope and commitment. And now it's time to greet your neighbors. These are the words of the Reverend Kenneth L. Patton. This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature. It is a house of friendships, an open room for the encouragement of our struggle. It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. It offers a platform for the free voice, both in times of security and danger. It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress. This house is indeed a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor. And now please rise and body your spirit to sing hymn number 1, the original title of which is Prayer for This House.
Our heritage from the Pilgrims. More than 400 years ago, a boy named William Brewster lived in the town of Scrooby, England. Scrooby is and was located in Nottinghamshire, where Robin Hood is said to have come from. But this isn't a story about Robin Hood. It's a story about pilgrims and a story about us. Here's the beginning of the story. When William was a boy, most of the people who lived in England were members of the Church of England. It worked like this: you were born in England, so you belonged to the Church of England. Now, some people thought the Church of England hadn't got rid of enough of the beliefs and rituals they inherited when King Henry VIII split from the Catholic Church. They wanted to purify the Church of England even further, who thought they should be separate from the Church of England. They were known as separatists, and they weren't popular. In fact, they were likely to be thrown into prison. Just as an aside, I lived in Germany for a while, and your taxes either went to the Catholic Church or to the Protestant Church, and you were identified as a member of one or the other. Now, that may have changed recently. One of the beliefs of the separatists was that no one should be forced into church membership. People should belong to a church because that's why they want to. They should group together and make it a church was not without symbols or rituals or priests, but a covenant promise among the people as to how they would be in relationship with each other, how they would treat each other. The separatists who lived in Scrooby, England, made a covenant with each other. In 1607, when William was 17 years old, they promised to join themselves into a church like the early Christian church, where there were no priests or ministers or creeds that you had to believe. They would do the best they could to find out what God wanted them to do, and then they would walk together in their lives as best they could. No matter what it cost them, and you can tell the cost was high, by the names William eventually gave his children. Are you ready? Fear, love, patience, and wrestling. Because it wasn't safe for the separatists to return in England, a few years after they made their covenant, they immigrated to Holland. The good news was that they could practice their religion, but the bad news was that their children were learning to speak Dutch, not English. So in 1620, they immigrated to the colonies in North America. Today, we know them as pilgrims, separatists, pilgrims. The word pilgrim meaning someone on a religious journey. And the congregation was gathered in 1607 in Scrooby, and that finally set foot in Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1620 is today the Unitarian Universalists. That's us. So you can say you were a pilgrim of sorts. Over the years, the religious beliefs of the pilgrims, which had first been very much the same for all of them, those beliefs about God and about people started to change. And if a group of pilgrims were to walk into this great room today, they would say, no, this isn't us. No, this isn't us. Okay? So unless they came when we were having our annual meeting of the congregation, because the way we at this fellowship govern ourselves is the same way the pilgrims did way back in 1607. So remember our annual meeting when we came all together? Okay. The pilgrims all believed in God, who was a part of their lives. They wanted to do what God wanted them to do, so they believed that God could speak through a farmer as well as through a fancy rich person. So when they met to govern themselves, every person got to give their opinion, and every opinion was considered. The way of governing was the beginning of the town meetings that eventually were held throughout New England. The town meetings where everyone could say what they thought, and then everyone voted for the ideas they thought were best. And we actually had that happen today if you listened to Kevin, if you listened to the book club announcement. Okay. And everyone voted for the ideas they thought were best. They laid the foundation of the democratic process, which we still use in our congregation today, and which became the way that the United States was run, at least until recently. Anyway, govern themselves.
Through our hearts to
it's your service. You get to choose your favorite hymns. Thank you, choir. This is our time of meditation. I hope you've relaxed during that beautiful hymn. And we can take some deep breaths. If Nathan were standing up here, he'd be telling you if you want to stretch and take some deep breaths. So, Lois Bianchi asks us to send good thoughts to her grandson Liam in Colorado, who is recovering from surgery. And Billy Lee Dunford Jackson is delighted to have her brother, Tim Dunford, visiting with her for now. He's from Virginia Beach, and she's delighted to have him here. And welcome, Tim. We're delighted to have you also. And while there don't be any more concerns sent from the congregation, the world is full of concerns. It's a tough time for a lot of us when we think about when Lloyd and I were at the Universalist Church, Fourth Universalist in New York about 20 years ago. We were friends there while we lived in New York, and the minister there every week lit a candle acknowledging the suffering in the world and the difficulties that so many people around the world had. And so I would invite you to, in your mind, light a candle for the people of Gaza, the people of Ukraine, the immigrants in the United States, and so many more. And let's maybe hold them in our hearts for a moment. With gratitude for all that we have, and with hope for the world, we will have a little more silence. Blessed be. Well, you heard the story for all ages, but before I continue the service, let me clarify some of the actual history and maybe answer some questions you might have. It doesn't take long in our history for us to conflate the Pilgrims with the Puritans. There weren't many pilgrims to begin with, and then half of them died. And by 1630, droves of Puritans were arriving in the colonies. They were actually cautioned about mingling with the Pilgrims, who were considered just too radical. But the Separatists were the ones who had 10 years of experience living there, so believe me, they mingled. And the Pilgrims, greatly outnumbered, morphed, at least in our minds, into Puritans, except at Thanksgiving. Were the Separatists in Scrooby so radical that they actually thought that God made his will known through women as well as men? Maybe. They were basing their church on the early Christian churches, where women could play and did play leadership roles. We do know, though, when it came to non-church governance, like the Mayflower Compact signed in 1620 by the Separatists, or the Guilford Covenant signed in 1639 by an ancestor of our own Kevin Murphy, all the signatories were male. And by the time the Puritans were having democratic town meetings in New England, only men could vote. Just how did the Pilgrims become Unitarian? Well, of course, they themselves didn't. But the congregation that they founded, which built First Parish Church in Plymouth, called a minister in 1800 who was just too liberal for many, but not the majority of the members of the congregation. So the Orthodox minority crossed the street and built what is now called the Church of the Pilgrimage. It's UCC, or United Church of Christ. They actually put on a plaque saying, we're the people who are still carrying the covenant, not those people across the street. And the heretical majority kept their church building, embraced the new message of Unitarian Christianity, and in 1825 or so became part of the newly founded American Unitarian Association. Now, while the Pilgrims with a capital P weren't Unitarians, we Unitarian Universalists might consider ourselves to be pilgrims with a small p, as we are people on some sort of a religious quest. We came to this fellowship seeking something important in our lives, be it a supportive community, a justice-seeking enclave, a place where our questions are encouraged, an opportunity to sing in a choir. Most of us probably walked in here for the first time wondering if we might fit in, where we might fit in, or even if we might fit in. And it takes a leap of faith to walk through those doors. The first time I met this congregation, it was meeting in the cafeteria at Swope Middle School while building this wonderful structure. It was a summer service, no minister. Some women who had just attended some UU women's program involving a labyrinth had brought a huge canvas labyrinth into the cafeteria as the centerpiece of the service. Unfortunately, getting that labyrinth into the cafeteria was the only part of the planning that had been carried out. No one was prepared. No one even seemed to be nominally in charge. It was not an impressive service. When it ended, Lloyd and I were surrounded by apologetic people telling us this was not the usual caliber of the services. If we'd come back, the next time was bound to be better. And if we didn't want to come back, well, there were some people they thought was maybe meeting in Unitarians at Lake Tahoe, and there certainly was a congregation in Grass Valley. The service had been a bust, but as longtime UUs, Lloyd and I were really just kind of amused by it, and we'd seen worse. But what really struck us was how much the people cared. They felt that they had let us down, and they were trying their best to make things okay, make things better for us. And in the midst of those earnest people, Lloyd and I found a home. 24 years later, here we are, having covenanted with this congregation to walk with them as best we can to fulfill our mutual endeavors. The concept of covenanting is, of course, a legacy of the Pilgrim forebears. When you officially join a Unitarian Universalist congregation, you aren't just saying, well, here I am, what's next? You and the congregation are promising to support each other as we all live out our shared values. One of those shared values is the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. So if the Pilgrims were to arrive on the Sunday of our annual meeting, they would have some understanding of what was going on. The meeting is conducted by members of the congregation. We all give our opinions, we all vote. This is democracy writ small. Democracy writ large was when the colonists inspired and informed by their pilgrim heritage, threw off the tyranny of their king. Or when about 30 members of our congregation showed up at a Washoe County Board of Commissioners meeting to speak out against Commissioner Herman's 19-point plan to discourage and disenfranchise voters. That was, for many of us, a religious experience, or at least a statement of our religious values. The democratic process we so cherish continues to be challenged. Our values also show up in our mission statement, and as an aside, before I continue, I know that in 2022, a very thoughtful group of people presented a draft of a covenant among UU members and friends, and this draft was approved unanimously at that year's annual meeting. It talks about what's important to us and spells out how we aspire to relate to one another, and there are copies in the literature rack outside this great room. But back to the mission statement. We adopted this statement in 2009 during our first year of Niels Anderson's ministry with us, and the National UUA at that time sent some district UUA folks to spend a weekend with us to kind of get us settled in together. This involved a Saturday workshop attended by, I think, most of the congregants. We were a crowded room here. Less than 2 years earlier, we had had 10 so-called cottage meetings where we could dream and discuss what we were looking for in a minister. And now we were going to ask what we wanted of ourselves. Who were we? From the start, our start in 1958, we cared for each other. It was a small group, many of whom were associated with UNR, who formed the fellowship. It wasn't really a church, no building, no choir, no full-time minister. In fact, it was 40 years before Catherine Lineage came here in 1999 as a 3-year extension minister. That was the first time there had been any consistent full-time ministry for this fellowship. The result was the development of a very resilient and very capable lay leadership, which we still have today. And because the members were generally so active, they knew each other well and what was going on in their lives, and friendships ran deep. Our search committee survey results from 2007 note, most members and friends feel loved and cared for by others in the fellowship. Originally, we were a fairly humanistic-leaning congregation. I'm thinking the early years services were often much like our forum today, when we have a speaker followed by a discussion. Because when I arrived in 2001, the forum was considered to be the first service. The second service being, like the one we have now, somewhat more liturgical. And I'm told it was Joyce Fisher who brought music into the services, and she sometimes is with us on Zoom, so if so, thank you, Joyce. Music, hymnals, candles for joys and concerns, visiting ministers, we started to look more like a religious organization, but it had been a struggle, with a shrinking congregation talking of disbanding in 1964. Still, the UUA had faith in us then, thanks to the houses, the Bianchis, the Isaiahs, the Talisos, Sandy Young, who was our early choir director, and others who kept faith while essentially wandering in the wilderness. The congregation continued. It was a triumph of faith in ourselves. As the congregation grew, it became more diverse in expressions of faith. Sunday service topics during the 2000-2008 program year, when we were in ministerial search, included, can we talk about God? Meditation is a guide on your spiritual journey, and shaping worth together, shaping worth being the meaning of the word worship. The search committee reported, few of us profess a belief in traditional concept of the divine, while many understand the divine as a web of existence, implying that our actions matter profoundly. We are humanists, agnostics, pagans, natural theists, Christians, Buddhists, atheists, and more. When we were in search for a minister, we knew justice-making was central to what we wanted to do, but we had a bunch of small groups at that time working in individual areas of concern, and none of the groups was really robust enough to make a big difference. So we deliberately called a minister whose passion seemed to match ours. And indeed, Neil Anderson helped UUFNN to start Action, which is Acting in Community Together in Organizing Northern Nevada, which eventually grew to be an organization of more than 20 local faith communities that work together to really make a difference. Today, that organization, now called Faith in Action Nevada, is statewide, and it continues its work, and we are known as Reno's Justice Church. I spoke of representatives from the District UUA spending a weekend with us in 2008. As we were finishing our time together, one of them said, "You know, we've been really impressed with you folks. You are so happy together. You have such a good time, and we haven't seen that kind of a congregation. They were very amazed by us," he said. And that was maybe the heritage from our so-called 20 years of wandering. Jim Hulse, in his telling of our history, wrote, "During our years of wandering, much of the energy that held us together and enriched our congregational life was displayed in parties and celebrations, a regular part of our experience. In the early years of this century, we had many shared occasions, including hikes after the service, moonlight snowshoeing adventures, well-attended potlucks with our kids. The pandemic put a sudden stop to those festivities, and we've yet to get ourselves really back in that lane." But back to the mission statement. When the district workshop leaders were gone, we had volumes of easel paper covered with ideas and dreams and words. How could we shape them into something that stood for what we wanted to be? We read through mission statements from other congregations and other organizations, and many of them, in trying to be conclusive, were really long. How often did people look at them, and did folks even know about them? We decided that our mission statement, like the Golden Rule, should be so concise that everyone could remember it. And sometime in the not-too-distant past, the words became a part of our weekly dedication of the offering to the work of our fellowship, which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy. But that's not what the original mission statement said. Our mission is simply to grow in love, faith, justice, and joy, not to help other people do so. I've been thinking about the difference between those two ideas, two statements, and to me, there is a profound difference. A concept I was reminded of recently by Jennifer Cochran, although in a very different context, was this, that when you're on a plane, at the beginning, before you take off, the flight attendant always reminds you to put on your oxygen mask first before helping others. So what does it mean if we, as individual members of UUFNN, decide to grow in love, to grow in faith, to grow in justice, to grow in joy? Would it deepen who we are in our daily lives, in our relationship to this fellowship? And would our fellowship then become even stronger, growing in love, faith, justice, and joy? Would we walk together with more intention, more love, faith, justice, and joy? I hope you'll take some time in the next week and think about this. Because how we walk together, how we take care of this house, our congregation, determines the strength of our congregation. We are the legacy of the Pilgrims who brought democracy to this country, and our values, which brought many of us here, are under siege. In his essay, Compensation, Unitarian Transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson maintains there is a balance in the universe, so that as we give, so shall we receive. The good you do returns as good to you, and the evil, I don't even want to go there. In the same essay, Emerson says, "Be as beneficent as the sun or the sea, but if your rights as a rational being are trenched on, die on the first inch of your territory." Well, I'm not urging martyrdom, although I could easily fill a whole service with stories of Unitarian Universalists, some within our own lifetimes, who have died while living out their faith. But short of martyrdom, let's do what we can. Love and joy. Let's bring back the potlucks and circle dinners and figure out more ways to get to know those beautiful children that we see only briefly and occasionally. I know times have changed and we'll have to do some really creative thinking. But in the meantime, you can serve as a greeter, join the choir. For starters, introduce yourself to someone you don't know after today's service. Faith. All right, now you're getting the sales pitch. We're offering a really fun interactive workshop on personal theology. The goal is to help newcomers think about what they believe and to learn what UUs believe. But we really need a critical mass of participants each month to make this work well. I just experienced this new workshop for the first time a few weeks ago. It was really fun, it was interesting, it made me do some thinking. So those of you who have been around for years or even decades, please join us sometime on the first Sunday of the month. You'll meet new folks while you ponder some very interesting questions. Grow your faith. You can start next Sunday right after the service, okay? Right after the service, and there will be snacks. How to grow in justice. Well, be like Janet Nelson and Philip Moore and write letters to the newspaper. Work with the posse. Join Jackie Riley at the Anti-Racist Culture Book Club. Lobby for safe climate like Nancy Litchfield or Michelle Hamilton and Brian Thornton. Show up at protests. Midterm elections are here in less than 16 months. It's not too early to get involved. Remember, of course, the importance of self-care. And then remember that we gather today in this house that was built by those who came before us. During the 66 years we've been here, we have seen 20 ministers, some of who were very part-time, come and go. For more than half our existence, we have been lay-led or had only a quarter-time or half-time minister. And when a minister departs, no matter the circumstances, we just march on, being us. Reverend Karen Foster was a beloved presence here, and she brought her own warm style. And within a week or two of her retirement, we'd swapped out her music stand for this pulpit, and we also had brought back our hymnals and their songs, and are no longer singing Emma's Revolution quite as much. Having been blessed with a strong foundation, we are still strong through all sorts of transitions. Exciting and productive times lie ahead with Reverend Kristen Famular, who is being hired to be our minister, and we will consider at some point perhaps whether to call her. Because the minister is not the fellowship, the congregation is. Let's continue to live up to the legacy of our forebears. Let's walk together and care for this house.
shall be. Right the path before us lies. Joyful pilgrims now we rise. Life calls us on. Life calls us. Yes. 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 Life calls us on. Oh yes. Life calls us on. Life calls us. Yes. Life calls us on. Life calls us on.
I think we should just bask in the feeling that we have right now as we dance to the end of our service. But it is the opportunity we have now to share our bounty with each other. It's through dedication, through generosity that we here at UUFNN are self-sufficient. Indeed, by each of us stepping forward and offering what we can, we provide for all that we do for each other and for the wider community. As is our wont, we designate a nonprofit as part of our sharing of offering, and this month it is the Eddy House. It was founded by Lynette Eddy. So, okay, all right, thank you. We have, we helped this nonprofit, so good works have, okay, thank you. Okay, everybody knows it except me, so I've been gone, okay? Anyway, we share our bounty. We share, oh, yes, okay. So we share our bounty. And of course, there's different ways, and you see them up on the screen, of ways you can donate to us. And let the offering begin. Just so you know, our Share the Plate partner is formally. And of course, they empower children in the Reno Tahoe area to learn and practice social emotional skills as they plant, tend, harvest, and prepare a wide variety of fresh fruits, vegetables in their organic gardens. So we share the plate with them, and we do it with great joy. So if you can help Bianca and I, Lois, please join in with us as we dedicate the offering to the work of this fellowship, which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy. We dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings.
And it's time to extinguish our chalice. With gratitude to those who came before us, with commitment to those who will follow us, we extinguish our chalice and carry its flame with us with love, faith, justice, and joy. Now please stand in body or spirit to sing our closing hymn 287, Faith of the Larger Liberty, and then please remain standing for our choral and spoken benedictions. Out of dreams and sacrifice, the people built a home. May the rain fall lightly on this house. May the sun shine warmly and the winds blow softly, and bless it as a place of love, faith, justice, and joy. So be it, and amen.
All right. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what